guys are never gonna believe what just happened. It was absolutely insane. Honestly, I can't even believe it. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't have it on camera.
Flip it.
All right, today is day 25, but before I get started, we gotta talk about day 24. Day 24 was... We got in pocket 10s versus 7-8 offsuit on 7-5-4, and our opponent spiked a 6 on the river. We spiked trips with a jack kicker against the same opponent who also had trips with an inferior kicker, but he ended up making a full house. Annoying. It was definitely annoying. I left the casino last night feeling really irritated. Lost around 1,700 on the session when we could have easily had a 3K win. But oh well, I'm over it. I got a night away from the table, so I'm ready to get back at it. It's Valentine's Day today. I don't want to play all night. Want to go eat some ramen with my wife tonight and celebrate Valentine's Day the way that couples celebrate Valentine's Day, by having a nice meal and going to bed early. I mean, she does have to work tomorrow. It's a weekday, and I'm on the grind, you know, trying to make compelling content. All right, well, it's time to get to the casino. I'm out of here. Day 25. Embrace the grind. Let's get it started. Day 25, Valentine's Day. Man, it's coming down. But we're gonna be inside of a casino all day, embracing the grind. The first hand I want to talk about on day 25 was a hand where there was 2 limps. I made it 40 on the button with ace-10 offsuit. The big blind called, and both limpers called. Flop came king 10-4. And the big blind now leads out for $25. Both the other players call, and it's up to us on the button. For this sizing, I actually think I'm going to be ahead the majority of the time here. It's a little thin to be raising on this board texture, and I think that I'm going to find out how strong the opponents are on the turn. So we elect to just call here, and the turn is a 6 of clubs. It now checks all the way around to us, so I decided to make a pot appropriate value bet here. And I bet $100. Only the big blind calls and the other players fold. This tells me that I likely have the best hand here. So when the ace of clubs comes on the river, it does bring a backdoor flush and it does bring an open-ended in. But I don't think that he's going to check and leave himself with $200 with a hand that ace 10 can't beat. So I decided to jam it in, and he tank and reluctantly folds. I did manage to get in a 5-hour session, so we accomplished our goal of time. Another bit of a frustrating day. I did flop a king high flush and lose to a flopped bottom set. Lost a little over $1,000 pot there, but still ended up booking a $400 win. And at this stage of the grind, the wins actually are starting to feel pretty good. Day 26, I think. It is Friday, February... I don't know. It's Friday, February something. And I'm on my way to the grand opening of a brand new poker room in the San Diego area, 25 minutes from my place downtown. It's called Hummel Casino. All right, guys, I'm going to stop the recording right here because after this, things did not go according to plan. And I decided to document it on Instagram story. I was a little heated, a little tilty, and I think the Instagram story captures the way I was feeling better than I was able to record on my camera. So I'm gonna let Instagram story take over from here. You guys, this is the face of someone that drove 45 minutes to the grand opening of a brand new casino to play in a $550 50K guarantee and did not bring his wallet. So I had to drive 45 minutes back home. Should only take me about 30 minutes to get back. So about 2 hours wasted of my day. But you know what? Those are the early levels. I don't want to play those levels anyways because it's a waste of time. We're gonna hop in there and win a lot of chips. It's a $550 buy-in. You guys know I don't play tournaments, but it's supposed to be good value and possibly an overlay. That's why I'm playing. So good luck us. All right, guys, we're leaving Hummel Casino, and I don't play tournaments very often, but man, tournament players are really, really, really bad poker players. It's just unbelievable how soft tournaments are. But unfortunately, tournaments are for rich people and people that like to play the lottery. And that's partially why they're so soft. But I'm a grinder, so I'm not gonna mess with that nonsense anymore, and I'm off to play some cash games. I'm gonna give you guys some do's and don'ts at the poker table as well. So the hand that I had aces, where I made a ridiculous huge raise pre-flop and got 6-way action and lost to 5-3 offsuit after I flopped top set and jammed. The guy wanted to give me a strategy session on why he put me on aces and how he thinks it's the right call with 5-3 offsuit. I didn't ask for strategy. I just said nice hand, and he proceeded to give me all the reasons why he called and all the reasons why he beat me, which I never responded to. I just sat there and just kind of looked at him like, why are you talking to me? So here's the lesson. When you win the hand, don't continue to talk to the losing player in the hand about what they did wrong or why your strategy was the right strategy in beating them. All right, as you guys can tell, I was a little bit frustrated. Needed the 25-minute drive to 7 Mile to cool off a little bit. And also, there weren't any cash games that were running at the Hamul Casino, so that's why I took off. So I didn't have quite as much juice left when I got to 7 Mile because it had already been a long day. Did manage to put in 4.5 hours and got caught up in a really big hand here where I was dealt pocket deuces. Early position made it 30. We called and it folded around to the big blind and he made it 130. The original raiser called and we closed the action here, 1200 effective, and made the call as well. Flop came down queen jack deuce with 2 clubs and the big blind just jammed all in dark for $240. The original raiser now calls and we have around 1K left. This is a guy from earlier in the episode that definitely overplays his hands a lot. So I'm very comfortable in jamming here and expecting him to call off with a hand as good as ace queen. And I actually expect him to likely call with a hand like ace jack as well. So I jam it all in and he makes the quick call. And sure enough, he does have pocket queens. So we lose a big pot here, around $2,700. It's a frustrating day altogether. Ended up losing close to $1,400 on the session. What's up? It's day 27. 4 more days of the grind. I can't wait for it to be over, especially after the last 3 days. But honestly, that's life on the grind. When I have the last 3 days be torturous and probably 3 other days in the month be torturous, that's 6 days out of 27 that it feels like I can't win. And it feels like the deck is stacked in the other people's favor and that there's nothing I can do to win. So when you're having 6 out of 27 days like that, it's hard to keep in perspective that that's totally normal. And not only is it normal, it's to be expected. We're almost to the 7 Mile. So we're gonna pack up the camera and get started on day 27. 4 more days of the grind, let's go. I felt like I had my mind right going into day 27. But honestly, it was more of the same on day 27. As soon as I sat down, it was a crazy hand where middle position made it 30. Next to act called. We made it $205 in the small blind. The original raiser folded, and the guy who had just called the 30 now jams for $900 additional dollars. So a total of around $1,100. Has me covered barely, and he has ace king. We are in good shape going to the river when the ace falls on the river, and it just feels like more of the same. This time I did a little venting through text messaging. I battled back a little bit, but still ended up down on the day. Around $300 after 6 hours. Still in a bit of a rut, but luckily I'm off to Commerce Casino for Christie and Wino Poker's meetup game. I think a change of scenery is going to be just what I need to get out of this funk and to just freshen things up a little bit. All right, guys, we're at the Commerce Casino. It's day 28 of the grind. I'm hanging out with some friends here. Hey!
Hey! He got me good already. He got me.
All right, it's day 28 of the grind. We're playing 3-5 no limit hold'em today with a $500 buy-in. So a slightly smaller game, and tougher players. But I think the action will be loose, so we'll see what happens. But I'm gonna get a solid 4 hours here. I'm here supporting Wino Poker and Christy Arnett, who are having a meetup game. But I'm gonna get to it on the grind and have some fun, hopefully make some money. So early on in the session, this young lady right here, Amila, I get involved in a hand with her where she's in the big blind. It came raised from early position to $10 from Raider Poker right here on Instagram. I like to call him G. He's been a long-time supporter of the channel, and I'm pretty sure that he actually picked up a hoodie before. So thanks, G. Anyways, in this hand, we're gonna be playing the perspective of Amila, and what happens here is after G makes it $10 and I 3-bet to 50 in late position, Amila calls from the big blind and G ends up folding, so I go heads up with Amila. Flop comes down ace 10-4 with 2 spades. Amila elects to lead out for $40. She leaves herself with 190, and I elect to make the call here. The turn is an 8 of spades, completing the flush draw. And now with $190 being in the pot and having $190 behind, Amila elects to check her ace 7 of hearts here. And after she checks, I decide to move all in for an exactly 1-to-1 stack to pot ratio.
You're so handsome.
I'm not going to tell you what I had.
That's the first time I ever heard that after it all out. We gotta move first for everything.
She ultimately decides to fold, and we end up taking it down with a bluff. No, I'm just kidding, guys. I had ace jack, so I had her beat. She definitely tries to catch me off guard with some trickery here. Luckily, it wasn't something that I haven't heard before, so I was prepared. Later on in the session, after a pretty smooth go of it, after changing tables, I get involved in a hand where I open it up from under the gun with ace 10 offsuit, and only the big blind calls. A good buddy of mine by the name of Daniel Caudillo. Flop comes king, queen, jack. We flop the nuts, and he checks it to us. We bet 15. He calls. The turn is the 8 of clubs, so we still have the nuts. He check calls 45 now, and on the river, 5 of diamonds, holding the nuts here when he checks it over to us.
I call. That's why you only call. Nice. How much is it?
Oh my gosh.
Jeez, that's making it wrong.
140.
Wow. I ended up having a really nice session at the Commerce. Connected with a lot of cool people in the community. I just love supporting anything that Christy does. And I actually went on her podcast a couple days later to discuss Embrace the Grind.
Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners or anything about
Yeah, I think that we touched on it when we first started talking, but the things that have come to fruition in my life that are the things like being an influencer, being able to DJ at clubs, making a living playing poker, all these things that people see on the outside and they're like, how do I become an influencer? How do I become a professional poker player? How do I book DJing gigs? How do I create my own clothing brand? Most of these questions that I get on a daily basis are rooted in the destination. They're rooted in how do I make money? Or they're rooted in how do I become quote unquote internet famous? And I think that that's the foundation of that is so flawed, and it's not the path to get you to those places. The path is really loving what those things are. So if you want to be a superstar DJ playing in a club, that's not your intention. Your intention is, I love playing music so much that I'm just gonna play music in my living room for my dog, who's not gonna give me much feedback, and I'm doing it because I love it, and I'm gonna spend one day on this one sound of this one song because I want to make it perfect for myself, because that's what enriches me. In poker, I want to become the best at poker because it's a game, and I'm like so enthralled with the logic of it and the math of it, and I just love solving puzzles. And then through the process of doing all these things that you really love to do, then that leads to whatever that destination is of you performing on stage, or you making a living playing poker, or you having your own clothing brand. So for me, having a YouTube channel where a lot of people watch it and a lot of people value my opinion, and I actually an influencer in the space of poker. That didn't happen because it was an accident, because like that was what I started out to do. It was 10 years, 12 years of grinding and learning so much about it, and then offering an insight and using my other skills through those 10 years of discovery on it. I think the word embrace is so key because it really encapsulates that the downs are equally as important as the ups, and you kind of have to like embrace all of it and realize that it's just part of the journey and part of the process. There's no shortcut. It's just doing what you do and loving it so much, and eventually it turns into something that's fun and great.
Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4.
Alright, it's day 29. We are back at the 7 Mile after being at the Commerce yesterday, and I just realized I left my battery charger for this camera plugged into a wall with my backup battery in it at the Commerce, and that's a long drive. So I'm not even sure that I don't know, what am I don't know. So I gotta conserve this battery, and got 2 more days of grinding. Got about 14 hours left. Excited to finish this up. Day 29 was a battle, and it also brought one of the most interesting hands that I played on the entire grind. It started with under the gun making it 20. I was on her immediate left and decided to flat call with pocket queens. Next to act, a short stacker decided to make it 70. Small blind overcalled, and when the original raiser called and we're sitting here with queens, given that the under the gun +2 player only has around $300, simple hand reading tells me that I'm going to have the best hand all day here, because the original raiser would have ISO raised pre-flop if she had a hand that beat pocket queens. So I decided to take the initiative here, and I ISO him all in for $420. I expect this to do the trick, but in hindsight, I think that jamming all in for $1,100 is totally fine here. Just force the other players in the hand to make a bad decision. So as expected, the guy on my left does jam in for 300 and change here. But to my surprise, the small blind actually makes the call for $420, only leaving themselves with around $800. So it's going to take a lot to get me to fold here, even though there is virtually no side pot. Flop comes down King 7-5 rainbow, and when he checks it over to me, with there being no money in the side pot, I decided to just check this one back. In my mind, he has a pretty narrow range pre-flop, calling $420, so I don't think that he's going to call a bet on the flop unless he has a pair of kings. The turn is a 4 of clubs, and he decides to jam all in. And this is obviously a tough spot. I posted about it on Facebook, and the consensus was that this is a very easy fold, because he would have to be bluffing into a dry side pot. The problem that I face is that the guy on my left is in the process of buying more chips, which obviously is not very good etiquette on his part, but what it does is it gives me information, and it leads me to believe that the guy on my left does not have pocket queens beat. This really influences me to want to make the call here, knowing that I have the guy on my left beat. Am I supposed to do that? Fuck. That makes me want to call even more. Oh, that sucks. I know you have ace king. You have ace king, right?
You have to call to find out what I have.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. No, I don't. You get to see either way.
I know. I have him beat. That's what sucks. Such a good price too. It's only $800.
You can call me.
I know.
And you can call me and see my cards, and you can fold and see my cards.
I know. You seem pretty comfortable.
Maybe I want you to think I'm comfortable.
I know, you're...
Maybe I'm like sweating inside.
You're a sick leveler. Oh, I love the way you're talking to me though. It's fun. Fuck, man, it's so close. I'm a fold. But ultimately, I decide that it's just burning money here to call on this board, mostly because of the dry side pot. So I go ahead and let it go, and oh man, this one is frustrating. First to show.
Fair or what? Man, I don't even want to show you. You're going to be pissed at me.
He ended up having 5-6 of clubs and bricking on his open ender and flush draw. Obviously, if I would have known that he was capable of calling off 1/3 of his stack pre-flop with 5-6 suited, I would have played this hand much differently. But as it stands, he bluffed me out of the side pot and allowed the all-in player on my left to more than triple up.
Fuck! This is why I should never fucking fold.
I had to do it.
And rather than having a big winning session, I ended up winning like $100 on the day and leaving pretty frustrated. Heading into the last day of the grind, scratching my head, shaking my head. It's day 30, the final day. The whole enchilada has been cooked and prepared. I'm gonna go in and have my last session of poker here at the 7 Mile. Whew, definitely the last week has been trying, mostly because poker has been difficult and it's really tough to get back day to day, every day, go in there when poker's tough. One last session. Let's get in there. Let's mix it up and let's embrace the grind. So on the last day of the grind, things were going pretty well. It was a relatively low variance table and I was just grinding them down. I was up around $600 without ever winning a big pot. Just a really easy breezy day. Towards the end of the session, early position made it 25 and got 2 callers. I called in the cutoff with pocket deuces. The big blind called and the flop came ace, queen, deuce, all spades. And given that there's 5-way action pre-flop, I decided to go for value here and to deny equity against any naked spades. So I bet $80. Big blind calls, original razor calls, player in middle position calls, and then the guy to my right folds. Definitely have some concerns that the original razor has me beat. The turn comes the jack of diamonds, and the big blind now leads out for 220. Feels like he might have a flush here. To my surprise, both players in front of me call. It's obvious that someone at least has a flush here, and I actually think that the original razor pre-flop might have a higher set than me. I really want to fold this spot, but the price is so good. So against my better judgment, I make the call here, strictly based on the math. But in hindsight, this is a spot that I should just be folding. The river comes the 9 of hearts and the big blind bets 190. The original razor calls and the player next to act calls. So it's so obvious that somebody at least has a flush here.
I feel like you and I flop set over set. I'm sorry? Someone else has a flush.
So despite being oversetted with pocket deuces for the second time in the last couple days, we're sitting up around $600 when I decide to end, embrace the grind. Take care, guys. You guys are never gonna believe what just happened. It was absolutely insane. Honestly, I can't even believe it. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't have it on camera. All right, so we have one last shuffle left. We are under the gun. I have the rack underneath my feet when I am dealt pocket kings under the gun. Last hand, last shuffle of Embrace the Grind. And the lady on my left 3-bets me pre-flop. The guy on my right had an under the gun straddle, so she only starts the hand with 60 big blinds. Not to mention that I saw her 3-bet me earlier with King Jack suited. So I'm not going to mess around here, and I stick it all in with the pocket kings.
You have aces? Oh, I have kings.
Oh man, I can't make this up. I was so frustrated at this point, and this actually put me down on the session. I was at 150 hours, but I did not want to leave with this being my last hand. So I played for another hour and did my best not to tilt. And shortly after that, the poker gods were on my side when I called a raise with Queen 7 of hearts on the button and ended up cold decking someone who had Jack 6 of hearts, winning a $2,400 pot against them when they check jammed over the top of my $500 river bet for around $1,200. And we ended up winning almost $1,000 in our last session of Embrace the Grind. And man, was I pumped walking out of that casino. Taking a look at the final numbers, it is about what I thought it was going to be. Ended up making $53 an hour over 152 hours. I have around 4,000 hours at this particular stake. And while $53 an hour is lower than my historical hourly over those 4,000 hours, I do think it's about right given that I wasn't game selecting and I was playing in bad games. I was also frequently leaving good games. I do think that if you're a little bit more careful with game selection, you can likely push your hourly up into the $60 plus range. And if the game plays deeper, perhaps a 1.5K buy-in or uncapped buy-ins with some straddling going on, I think that the hourly long-term can be over $70 an hour. These hourlies are for the best players in the game, but they are something that you can look to as an aspiring player to measure yourself against. I go into a lot more detail on lessons learned, advice about embracing the grind, in general, advice about leveling up in your life on Christy Arnett's podcast. I'll put a link to it in the highlighted comment. I also go very deep on some specifics with Eric Fast in a cardplayer.com interview. I'll also link to that article in the highlighted comment. I have so many trips coming up: San Antonio, Texas, Vegas, Run It Up Reno. So please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date, and hopefully I'll see you in a poker room near you. So frustrated and tilted that I was like, I'm gonna play until I win all this money back. I don't want to leave Embrace the Grind getting kings versus aces on my last shuffle. And we got it back in like an hour.